For more on the political deadlock in France, global affairs analyst Kelechi Decker joins me now on the What Now. Good to have you join us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
So what we're seeing in France is almost like a repetition of what we saw in the UK last week, where former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak also called for snap elections. Well, many analysts have said President Macron was trying to flex his constitutional powers, and that's at a moment when he was, when he's losing grip on the country. How much of a gamble was this for President Macron?
Yeah, I think it's a very serious gamble. It's a rent check that backfired, and it also points to what a lot of people have been saying in the last year or so about his losing popularity, and also, finding himself in a kind of political quagmire because of some of the decisions he has taken over time. But there are certain challenges that are not of his making, like rising inflation and rising unemployment. Some of these things are some global issues that affect him. But how he reacts to it has been the major challenge he is facing at home, which has led to a lot of extremists. You find from the results, there is either extreme right or extreme left, why his centrist party has been losing a lot of influence lately.
And it would seem like by that gamble, he has now led France into a period of political gridlock and instability. How easily will he, that's President Macron now, navigate a way out of this deadlock?
Yeah, it's going to be quite tough for him, because what we experienced, especially from the group led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon, shows that they understood the game Emmanuel Macron played when he came into office, which was also coupling up a kind of a coalition of strange bedfellowship to be able to outseat the former president. Now, Jean-Luc Mélenchon has been able to do so, and Mélenchon is very ambitious. He contested the last presidential election with Emmanuel Macron. He's very ambitious, and he's very focused on what he thinks France needs. And what should worry a lot of people is that, apart from Macron's centrist party, both the far right and the far left also see immigration as an issue, which is something that is not very good for a lot of the immigrants, because what some of them are also calling for is a curb to the opportunities that are open to immigrants. So Macron is in a very tight corner. No party was able to score 289 out of the 577 seats to form a government. So what you're going to see is a period of instability, and unfortunately, Paris is hosting the Olympics, so they are now in a very tight fix on how to maintain a semblance of stability while the whole world is focused on Paris.
And I want to get to the far-right national rally in just a moment, but I want to stay on the idea of a coalition, because right now, his prime minister had resigned, but he has asked the prime minister to stay on. He's in office till 2027, which means he needs a prime minister. And that prime minister is not likely to come from his centrist party. And if you know French politics so well, you will know that the idea of compromise is very strange to French politicians. How easy will it be to form a coalition?
Yeah, basically because the people, the France on board, led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon, came in basically to stop the far right from coming into power. They were able to have that coalition of the Greens, the Socialists, the Communists, and the Trotskyists coming together just to stop Marine Le Pen's Rally National from coming into power. But now that they have stopped Marine Le Pen's Parti National from gaining power, even though they did make a lot of improvement on their last outing, the question now is, how will Emmanuel Macron, be able to go into another strange bedfellowship with Jean-Luc Mélenchon, because those are the people who ideologically he is closer to than the far-right Rally National. So that's where he's going to have a problem now, because even within that group, you have the Trotskyists, you have the communists, then you have the socialists and the Greens. So it's going to be a very tight, compromise, even for Jean-Luc Mélenchon, because they didn't have any ideology apart from stopping Marine Le Pen's Rally National from coming into power. So now it's time to go to the drawing board and saying, now that we have got power, what are we going to do with it?
All right, so let's talk about that Marine Le Pen's national rally. Their power bid, because when you look at it, at the very first election, they were on top. They were first, and then now it's third. But it will seem like their bid for power has been thwarted. But when you consider that in the last parliament, they had about 88 members of parliament, and now they have more than 140. And then there is no other party in France that has more than 100 members of parliament, because all the other parties are coalitions. How does this position her party for 2027?
I think it depends on how Europe goes, because there's a lot of influence, there's a lot of continental influence. When it starts in Europe, it starts moving from every other area. Britain went to the left, and you see a lot of Western coalition coming around in France, because they needed to stop a lot of European countries from going, the way of the Bulgarians and co. They want to stop the far-right movements across Europe from gaining a lot of upper hand. But Marine Le Pen, he's Mr. Pelado, he's the leader of the party, is also seeing it as a kind of success, that they move from 88 to where they are today. They see it as a kind of success. And it's also a pointer to the politicians in France that what's happening with the far-right party is that you can hold them down for now, but you're not likely to hold them down for a longer time, as long as issues of higher inflation, issues of high rising cost of living, and the challenges and fear of immigration is on the table. If these things continue happening, then a lot of people will be disillusioned, especially from how the present coalition is going to be formed. People will be easily disillusioned. So in the next presidential election, Marine Le Pen is likely going to have an upper hand, especially if issues of inflation and bad economy is not tackled now.
Thank you so much for your time. As always, we're watching developments in that country. Global Affairs Analyst Kelechi Teka, always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a break now where the